so I can keep it very brief. I'd like to thank Geneva and the National Alliance for the invitation to speak with you. My name is Steve Maxner. I'm the director of the Vietnam Center and Archive at Texas Tech University. As you can tell from my voice, I'm not native Texan. I actually grew up in Massachusetts and eventually made my way, thank you. I made my way to Texas through the Army and graduate programs and things like that. But it's a real pleasure to be here just to give you a little bit of information about our program at Texas Tech, what we've been doing for the past 30 years, almost 30 years, in collecting and preserving the history of the Vietnam War. The brainchild, the force behind creating our project at Texas Tech could be summed up very nicely with this graphic, and basically a quote from our founding director, Dr. Jim Reckner. And Dr. Reckner is a two-tour Navy veteran of the Vietnam War, and when he came to Texas Tech in 1988 to teach military history classes, there were no resources available to him to teach anything about Vietnam. And so he wanted to start collecting materials to see if he couldn't start, gathering what he needed, just at least to offer a graduate class on the history of the Vietnam War. From that grew basically this rather substantial collection now in Texas. But basically the graphic here represents Jim visiting Washington, standing there at the memorial, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall, and realizing that that wall is going to probably generate more questions in the future than it's going to answer. And he thought an archive like ours would be important in answering those questions. So our mission is very straightforward: to support and encourage research and education regarding all aspects of the American Vietnam experience, and to promote a greater understanding of all of that, as well as the peoples and cultures of Southeast Asia. And we don't just focus on the war. We want to look at the Vietnam War as a part of a longer tradition of U.S. Southeast Asia relations. And so our collections go all the way back to the 19th century and come forward to the present. And so we're not just looking at that period of conflict as kind of a microcosm of everything that's ever existed between us, but instead see it within its proper historical context. And that's especially important when looking at the Vietnam War, as all of you know, because you need to keep it in the Cold War context. And I think that one of the great things about all the different presentations here today is that's exactly what's happening here. We're talking about all of the different conflicts that occurred and all the different losses that have occurred throughout that history. Our background, again, founded by Vietnam veterans, by Jim Reckner and a group of other local Vietnam veterans in Lubbock, Texas. We were approved by the TTU Board of Regents in 1989. We're now a part of what's called the Institute for Peace and Conflict at Texas Tech, which is a newly formed institute within our College of Arts and Sciences. And we get a lot of guidance from Vietnam veterans throughout the country. Our operations and functions really do focus on providing support to our archive, which of course is the material collections that we have, and you can see there the different components within the archive itself. Manuscript collections, oral history project, library, and so forth. And I'm going to go through these slides kind of quickly because I really want to get to the end where I show you how you can access our materials. But the archive's mission is just to do all those things in terms of collecting, preserving the history of the war and all of the other aspects of U.S.-Vietnam relations. And the photographs you'll see throughout the presentation are actually from our collections. Some of them are, as you can tell, very vivid color photographs, mostly from veterans who were serving in Southeast Asia and Vietnam and donated their collections to us. So far in our holdings, we've received somewhere around 3,500 discrete donations, collection donations, and that includes all manner of material. So a lot of letters, diaries, photographs, slides, audio recordings, films, maps, equipment, weapons, everything you can think of. Basically, we probably have some in our archive, with the exception of some very large artifacts. We do have helicopters in our collection. I do mean real, full-sized helicopters. I'll show you some pictures of those later. But that is part of a larger mission that I'll end with in terms of my presentation today. But again, all manner of material. We average about 150 donations per year right now. We have over 15,000 books that are currently cataloged, probably another 25,000 that we still have yet to catalog. Our archival donor base is very broad. So we've got a lot of different types of people who donate to the collections. Again, the primary focus is on the military veteran experience during the Vietnam War, but all other folks, all manner of participants join us in doing this. So a lot of veteran organizations, government officials, non-governmental organizations. We've got an interview with Mike Bench, who, of course, as you all know, was very active with the Voluntary Services Organization there. So a lot of different types of groups donate to our archive, and we also have a lot of collections from the different participant countries to include both sides, North and South Vietnam, both sides in South Vietnam, to include the Republic of Vietnam as well as the Viet Cong, Great Britain, France, Soviet Union, China, basically a lot of different types of materials from almost all of the different participant countries involved. Again, a rather extensive library that we have. Our library is non-circulating. You can find our books in our library catalog, but in order to access them, you have to actually come to Texas Tech and sit down and access the books there. Because our primary mission is not to circulate materials, but to preserve them. So our library catalog books are always in our holdings and not on loan someplace where they can be lost or destroyed. By far the most exciting project we've embarked upon within the past decade and a half, almost 2 decades, has been the creation of our virtual Vietnam archive. Now, this project was funded through the Institute Museum and Library Services, basically to digitize and make available the materials that we have in our collections and provide free access through the internet. To date, we've scanned and added nearly 7 million pages of historical material to our virtual archive. It's freely available to anyone with an internet connection. And that includes all different types of materials, nearly 1 million individual records, you have documents, photographs, slides, audio recordings, films, all these in digital format, maps. So you can just go online, click on a link, and you're watching a video, or listening to an audio recording, or reading a document. So it's all digitized and right there at your fingertips. In terms of access, we think this is probably one of the most beneficial parts of putting the material online, obviously. But prior to creating this virtual archive, we had maybe 100 researchers come to visit Lubbock, Texas. How many of you have been to Lubbock, Texas? How many of you have? One person in the room? Well, 2, counting me. So if you have 2 people here have been to Lubbock. We're in the Panhandle, south of Amarillo, north of Abilene, not on the beaten path. And in order to be in Lubbock, you have to want to be in Lubbock. And so we had about 100 people a year come all the way to our archive to do on-site research. Now you can see the numbers for 2016, where we averaged almost 4 million user sessions in our virtual archive, 7 million searches conducted, and almost 2 million, or 1.6 million, documents downloaded, artifacts downloaded. And the cumulative total since we started that program, you can see there as well. And so just by throwing these materials online and advertising it and making sure that veterans and researchers are aware of it, we've generated incredible interest in learning about the Vietnam War. And most of that through the eyes of our veterans and the other participants in those events in the 1960s and 70s. The only thing we collect in terms of user statistics are the numbers and where people are accessing from in terms of country and sometimes state. We have to do that for our university to basically generate reports about our outreach to the public and to the communities around the world, around the country. We've had people from 160 plus countries accessing our virtual archive. 160 countries each year. And so this resource is getting incredible use, not just here in the United States, but around the world. Another really exciting and important part of what we do is collect and preserve what veterans remember about their service in Southeast Asia. So we have a very active oral history project, veterans participating from all 50 states. And you can see we also add those to our virtual archive with 875 of those audio recordings available online as well. We also transcribe and eventually put those online so you can read and listen to what veterans remember about their experiences. And we have a number of different special projects that we work on. Online subject guides to help researchers if you're looking for information about Agent Orange, riverine warfare, so on. We need to add one for POW/MIA issues because obviously this is still an ongoing and important issue that our nation needs to address, and we have quite a bit of resource material available regarding that. We also do online exhibits. We've worked with Vietnamese Americans in preserving their heritage and so on. Now, some of our other missions in addition to the archive include a lot of different programs and projects in Texas Tech, but also internationally, basically promoting any kind of education we can through exhibits and classroom participation, conferences and symposia. We have quite a few relationships with Vietnamese universities and trying to promote some kind of cultural exchange and academic exchange, and some scientific, humanitarian, academic projects in both Vietnam and Cambodia. And then also, we do take students on a study abroad. As you can imagine, having this kind of a resource available at Texas Tech has generated a lot of interest on the part of students who want to learn about the Vietnam War, and as a result, we get a lot of graduate students in particular who come to Texas Tech to study. Currently, we have 2 professors who focus on military history and diplomatic history, and they have roughly 70 students working, graduate students, master's and PhD, working between the 2 of them. They have the largest percentage of graduate students, any professors in the university, as far as in the history department. And the history of the Vietnam War, the history of U.S. military involvement in Vietnam and elsewhere, it's something that students gravitate towards. The Vietnam War history class that we teach is always filled almost immediately when it's offered, and it's not just a small little 20-person class. We're talking hundreds of students who want to take the history of the Vietnam War. And so because of that kind of interest in the history of the Vietnam War, we believe that a lot of that stems from what we've done with the Vietnam Seminar. Who accesses and uses the materials? You can see a list of some of the folks who we know have used them. We know that a lot of authors, historians, scholars who write about the Vietnam War access our collections, right? Basically using our materials to help provide the source materials for what they're doing. A lot of documentary filmmakers listed here, just so you see it's not just your traditional kind of archival research, but also materials being used to help educate the broader public. For instance, with the Ken Burns series coming out here really soon in September, they use some of the materials from our collections as well. Some of the unanticipated impacts. Again, we have a closer relationship with Vietnamese institutions than we anticipated. We are assisting the government with some of the search for the MIAs. We've worked with DPAA and provided some documents that have helped with some of their cases that they've been working on. A lot of assistance with veterans' claims. Veterans who need to provide documentation to substantiate submitting their claims have gone online and found materials that are important to that, and other things, other ways that we've helped our government and our military forces, lessons learned, and things of that nature. One specific project I didn't want to mention for you all is this CDEC project collection. I'm not sure how many of you have ever heard of CDEC, CDEC. Probably not many of you. That CDEC is an acronym, stands for the Combined Document Exploitation Center. Now, during the Vietnam War, when materials were captured in the field, that is, when an American unit went through and they killed the Vietnamese there and they captured documents and materials, there was an on-site process where they reviewed those materials to determine if there was anything militarily useful contained within them. If there was military information, they sent it back to Saigon, this is the CDEC office. And if there wasn't, they put it in a burn bag and eventually destroyed it. But all those documents and the materials that they found out in the field as a part of the military operations eventually made their way back to Saigon. Now, when they got there, they had this incredible program, this process, where they microfilmed those documents real time. Now, real time taking into account, of course, the lull in time that it took for materials to get to Saigon, and then to process them. But it was a computer-readable microfilm set. And basically, you can see here a document. This document represents one of the coding sheets that they used. It was an old IBM punch card system where they would basically put all kinds of information about the documents that they found. And then the image there on the left, you can see this kind of interesting microfilm frame. So you can see this is 35 millimeter film. On the bottom frame, the large image frame is the document. And then on the top part of the frame is actually the sound recording, where normally with a 35 millimeter film you would have sound. Instead, they have this alternating black and clear code. And that block code represents basically an alphanumeric code. And the alphanumeric code then represents actual information, data about that document. And that included a lot of very useful information. Basically, time of capture, the location by grid coordinate, longitude, latitude, place names, people names, all kinds of metadata that's available using that code. Basically, up until very recently, that collection has comprised 954 microfilm reels, 2.7 million pages of historical documents that are unusable. Primarily unusable because there is no rhyme or reason to the documents except for being able to conduct a search using this special microfilm system that they established during the war. The problem, there were 5 machines made that could read that film, where you could submit a query and actually go into the film and extract documents relevant to your search. There were 5 machines made and none of them worked. And so we had this brilliant idea, well, this is basically a code. And you can do optical character recognition on film and scanned images like this. So we got together with our computer science department, did a proof of concept. We worked with DPAA to get the code books and the other information we needed so that we could extract this information, go from this block code to the alphanumeric code to actual data. And we worked with some of our computer science folks. They said, yeah, this is doable. Here's a kind of a sample of what it would look like. So we had the proof of concept. Basically got together with a company in Dallas, Texas. They put together this whole package for us. And we completely digitized this entire film set, extracted all the information relevant to the documents, and now all 2.7 million pages are available online in our virtual archive. Now this is relevant to what you guys are doing and what DPAA is doing, primarily because those documents have information about Vietnamese unit locations. And so if there is specific information that we have about a Vietnam War missing personnel, if we have the information about where they went missing, well, now that can be correlated using this information to find exact units, Vietnamese units, who are in proximity to where that American went missing. And whatever information that we have about sightings, last known alive sightings of those veterans, again, by date, by time, by location, again, that information can be correlated to the documentation we have here, captured enemy information, and hopefully units identified that can provide information to our JPAC teams, to DPAA, and allow them to approach the Vietnamese government with the specifics of who they need to interview, who they need to talk to, and hopefully lead to some reconciled cases. So how can you access the materials that we have online? And I'm going to jump out of my PowerPoint here and go directly to the web because I think it's more. So when you go to our website, vietnam.tcu.edu, it won't look like this exactly, but you'll see this little bar across the top. Well, it's not showing up or not. Okay, there we go. So when you go to our website, vietnam.tcu.edu, you'll see a link to our digital materials there on the gray bar, and then you would want to click on digital materials search page. If you click on that now, it's going to go to our old database search page, which we are moving away from next week. So I don't want to show you that and confuse you, because if you go online next week, it's not going to look like that at all. It's going to look like this. Basically, it's a kind of a standard search. You do anywhere, Google, Bing, whatever. It's just your traditional search. We recommend people, unless they really do want to pull up literally tens of thousands of records or whatever, you should probably go ahead and use the advanced search, which I'm going to use. Because this allows you to add multiple keywords, allows you to limit by media type, and so on. And so, just out of curiosity, I did a search earlier on live sightings. Hopefully the internet connection can work. And our virtual archive is going to work. So, and that pulled up, as you can see, on the left-hand side, it lists the different records that have pulled up, some of the special project information that might be involved. It also brings up, on the left-hand side, the media type of the different documents and materials that you can access using that search. And then you can see here the materials themselves. Now, this starts off with a list of the finding aids for collections that we have that list information about live sightings, and then it moves down basically until you get to documents. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, because this is, of course, Boolean searching. I'm going to go ahead and add quotes so that we limit just to things that we know where live and sighting are next to one another, and redo the search. And this is going to reduce the number quite a bit. There we go. So you can see here, it brought back far fewer numbers of materials, but still quite a lot in terms of the number of documents. So what's really great about this search page now is you can click on this link to documents 1,270. Just click on that, and that's just going to pull back the actual documents where the words live sighting are present. Okay, I'm being told that I need to pick up the pace. You can then go through here and just start clicking on documents as you want. Okay, you can see there's quite a few that you can access them. If there's a PDF link, you can access it. Unfortunately, some of the materials we have are copyrighted. If that's the case, you'll see this, the little circle with the line through it saying copyrighted material. I did want to go ahead and pull up one sample. Okay, we'll use this with the report of the U.S. Office of PWMA Affairs document. If you want to look at this document, just click on, you can click on this link. It'll give you a little bit more information about it. You click on the PDF link here to go to the actual document. And then, and I'm going to go through this quickly since I'm running out of time. If you click on this Garnet Bell collection, that's going to pull up everything. If you find that document that you just looked at a particular interesting use, you can go to everything that that person's donated. Garnet Bell in particular has donated a lot of materials regarding the POW-MIA issue. That's going to then pull up, as you can see, his finding aid there is listed, so that's the inventory of his collection. But more importantly, when you look down here, he's donated and we've digitized and made available 10,087 documents from his collection. That's mostly about the POW-MIA issue in Laos and Vietnam. So a lot of different types of materials that are available there.
And just so you know, after Dolores passed away, my mom and some other people went through Dolores's hard file archives, and a good portion of them have been donated.
And we'll be making those available.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, we'll be doing the same thing. The only thing I'd like to show you is in the event that you ever needed maps for any of your research or work, we do have on that simple search page, whoops. On the simple search page, you can go in and do a CDEX search, or you can do searches for maps and so on. On that map search page, if you need any of the maps for Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, or Thailand, correction, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, we had to take the Thailand maps down because they couldn't copyright over all of them. But anyway, you can go to this map search page. If you're looking for maps of Vietnam, you can just click on navigate the country here. Click on the country. And these are wartime maps. And then what's pulled up is a graphic that shows you that area of Vietnam. You can click on the region you want to look at. And that pulls up the 1 to 50,000 scale maps for that area. Then you can just click on whichever map you want. And it pulls it up. I'm going to go back 1 second. So when you click on the map, basically what comes back is a navigable window here. On the right side, you can see the small little map as a thumbnail. You can click on that and enlarge it to see if that's the map you want. If it's not, you can go back in here and use those little buttons around it to navigate in the cardinal directions to pick up the different maps around it. If that's the map you want, you can, underneath it, you can see where there's links to PDF versions of those maps. And if it's the map you want, basically you click on it and it pulls up a high resolution scan of the map. And these are, very high quality scans. You can actually delve really deeply into the details of what's available on the map. And you can take this to FedEx Kinko's and print up your own copy. So you can get your own maps of Southeast Asia as you want them. And then again, we have all of them for North and South Vietnam, Laos and Cambodia, and we're gonna try to get the time maps back up online. But towards the future of our project, as I mentioned, we have a growing artifact collection to include large artifacts like helicopters. These were donated by a gentleman in Fort Worth, Texas. We have a Cobra, Huey, TH-55, and OH-58, and eventually we'll be displaying those on our campus. We also have the Archive of Modern American Warfare to help preserve the history of veteran involvement in the wars since 1975. So working with a lot of more contemporary veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan to preserve their history. There's a really important need for this now because so much of what our younger veterans have today is born digital. So it's digital photographs, emails, digital correspondence, and that stuff is ephemeral. People lose their phones, they lose flash drives, and it goes away quickly. And so we want to make sure that we work with younger veterans now to preserve that through a digital preservation process, and we're in the process of working on that with them now. And then we are also building a building on our campus. The Vietnam Center Archive Museum of the Vietnam War. This has been approved by our Board of Regents. We just received a $400,000 gift that is being used to support this endeavor, to hire a development officer, a full-time dedicated person to help us raise $25 million so that we can build this building on our campus. And we'll launch our official fundraising program by the end of summer.
Please put your phone on mute. Everybody put their
So,
phones on mute. We're just about to start.
And I hate to have to interrupt, we actually have a conference
I know,
that's waiting.
That was it.
Oh, well,
So,
there we go.
thank you very much.